The world we inhabit is not as free, or certain, or safe as you might think. The things that you believe to be unassailably evident are little more than shadows dancing behind a curtain, a masquerade crafted and dutifully upheld by an organization known as the Foundation. The file you are about to hear contains containment procedures, descriptions, testing logs, historical and in some cases first-hand accounts of the anomalous objects the Foundation serves to secure, contain, and protect. Its contents have been thoroughly scrutinized by the Ethics Committee and approved by the O5 Council for release to trusted associates of the Foundation. This is SCP Unredacted. Item number 6842, Level 3, Confidential. Containment Class, Safe. Disruption Class, VLAM. Risk Class, Notice. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-6842 is currently in the care of Agent Klein of MTF Omicron 1, Tactical Penetration. Further containment procedures were deemed unnecessary after positive behavioral changes were noted as a result of working with MTF Omicron 1. Periodic monitoring on a yearly basis of the extent of and potential changes in the entity's anomalous effects should be conducted to ensure classification remains appropriate. These assessments are to be performed at Biological Containment Site 63. Description: SCP-6842 is currently, as of 18 April 2019, a red merle pattern border collie in the care of Agent Klein of MTF Omicron 1. The entity was procured by the Foundation on 27 January 1942 and has undergone multiple metamorphoses since this time. When DNA testing became available, both pre- and post-metamorphosis DNA samples of the entity showed no significant discrepancies, suggesting SCP-6842 remains the same entity. The entity's anomalous property occurs at any point it would be expected to die. When brain death occurs in the entity, it spontaneously combusts. Once the entity's body is fully consumed, its phenotypic and morphological features will reconstruct into a different breed of Canis lupus familiaris, and general bodily functions will resume. The entity has attempted to escape containment multiple times and has been noted to metamorphose into breeds whose attributes are advantageous to these attempts. Behavioral changes are reported in provided test logs. Non-relevant test logs have been omitted from the official database entry, but can be made available upon request. Note: 23 July 1963. All further testing on the entity's anomalous effects is prohibited by the order of the Ethics Committee. The entity was discovered in 1942 as an ambulance dog working for the British Army. The Foundation located the entity after rumors of an immortal dog surfaced within the unit it was recovered from. At the time of initial containment, the entity had the appearance of a lurcher. The entity is believed to be a byproduct of the Seventh Occult War, possibly being the result of anomalous experiments performed by the British government. Tests with the entity revealed its anomalous traits, and after multiple different tests, the entity was officially given a Euclid classification due to its hostility towards researchers and multiple attempted escapes. Note: 12 August 1953. Since the entity was assigned to MTF Omicron 1, its behavior has undergone major changes, including a decrease in aggression and an increase in obedience. Following this, its classification was changed from Euclid to Safe. See Supplied Mission Report from MTF Omicron 1 for a more detailed log of these behavioral changes.
Test, logs, and relevant communications.
Termination Test 1, 1 February 1946. Presiding Researcher, Dr. J.C. Conrad. Initial breed, Jack Russell Terrier. Breed after termination, Mastiff. Termination method, snapping the neck. Results: unexpected spontaneous combustion. After fully being consumed by flame, the entity underwent a metamorphosis. When fully regenerated, the entity showed phenotypic similarities to a mastiff. Dr. Conrad was brought to medical for treatment of the sustained burns. Behavior: the entity, upon being taken out of its containment cage, was wagging its tail and trying to engage personnel in a playful manner. The entity showed no significant changes in behavior after the test.
Assignment to SCP-6842. Date: 2 February 1946.
Dear Dr. S.C. Ryman, the following is a notice for the continuation of the testing of SCP-6842, and consequently, your assignment to said SCP, as Dr. Conrad is on medical leave. The next pre-approved testing date is 3 March 1946. Site Command, BCS-63.
Termination Test 2, 3 March 1946. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Mastiff. Breed after termination, German Shepherd. Termination method, drowning. Results: the entity was taken to a testing chamber with a water basin large enough to ensure the entity could not touch the bottom when fully filled. Active drowning set in after 20 minutes. The full anomalous effect took place underwater, including the entity being consumed by flames and regeneration. Behavior: the entity initially showed signs of contentment, like tail wagging and a playful demeanor, as with previous tests. After completion of the test, the entity showed some hostility towards staff, which presented as growling upon being brought back to its containment. Termination Test 6, 3 July 1946. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Labrador Retriever. Breed after termination, Beagle. Termination method, shooting in the head. Results: the entity was terminated by a shot to the head, leading to near instantaneous combustion and metamorphosis. Behavior: the entity showed aggression to staff trying to take it out of its containment cage. The entity attempted to escape by running for the door to the testing chamber, which was slightly open at the time. It should be noted, the entity metamorphosed into a small breed of dog.
Telefax message.
Date: 5 July 1946. Time: 14:13. Sender: Junior Researcher C. Harris. Recipient: Site Administration, BCS-63. Subject: Reassignment Request.
Dear Sir and Madam, I would hereby like to submit a formal request for reassignment from SCP-6842. Witnessing the testing performed on the entity has caused me significant psychological distress, and I believe this will lower the quality of my future work. Thank you for your consideration. Regards, Junior Researcher C. Harris.
Termination Test 12, 3 January 1947. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Siberian Husky. Breed after termination, Bernese Mountain Dog. Termination method, subcutaneous lethal injection, pentobarbital dosage, 100 milligrams per kilogram. Results: the entity was injected subcutaneously with pentobarbital at a dosage of 100 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. After approximately 25 minutes, during which the entity emitted sounds of distress, the same combustion as observed in previous tests took place. After metamorphosis, once the entity could move, it pounced off the medical table and snapped at any staff close to it, biting Dr. S.C. Ryman in the process. Behavior. Prior to testing, while transporting the entity to the testing room, the entity snapped at the research assistants. After testing, the entity broke free from the restraints, attacking and biting Dr. Ryman. Note: Dr. Ryman was cleared by on-site medical staff and suffered no long-term adverse effects from the bite.
Further testing on SCP-6842 will focus on attempts to influence its post-metamorphosis breed. Initial tests will operate on the assumption that cause of death is a leading factor in breed selection. Due to the entity's increase in aggression, one armed personnel member should be present during all testing to ensure staff safety. Dr. S.C. Ryman.
Termination Test 20, 17 September 1947. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Basenji. Breed after termination, Whippet. Termination method, drowning. Results. The entity has regenerated into a Whippet. While taking the cause of death into account, the expected breed after metamorphosis was a German Shepherd. This development gives reason to suspect that, while linked, the cause of death is not the only variable determining the breed after metamorphosis. Further testing will be required. Behavior. While preparations were being made for testing, the entity showed aggression and, when taken out of containment, violent hostility. Post-metamorphosis, the entity escaped as one staff member opened the door to the testing room. The entity had to be tranquilized to ensure recontainment. Termination Test 29, 17 June 1948. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, German Shepherd. Breed after termination, Whippet. Termination method, subcutaneous lethal injection, pentobarbital dosage, 100 milligrams per kilogram. Results. The entity was injected with pentobarbital at a dosage of 100 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. After approximately 35 minutes, during which the entity emitted sounds of distress on a near continuous basis, the combustion reaction took place as normal. The post-metamorphosis breed of the entity was again not in line with the expectations set by previous tests. While the leading theory is still that the specific death has an effect on the outcome of the change of breed, more resources will be used to find the exact link to maximize the use of this feature. Behavior. The entity showed initial hostility when personnel entered the testing room with the supplies needed for the injection. It attempted to attack personnel when the injection was to be administered. Post-metamorphosis, the entity ran around the room attempting to find a means of escape. The entity was transported back to its containment cage when it had expended all of its energy. Termination Test 34, unofficial, 3 March 1948. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, American Staffordshire Terrier. Breed after termination, Mastiff. Termination method, shooting, center mass. Results. The entity was shot during an escape attempt. The entity broke loose from personnel transporting it to a testing chamber and was incapacitated by gunshot fired by security personnel that hit center mass. The expected combustion happened approximately 15 minutes later. The escape attempt was classified as malicious. Behavior. The entity was not outwardly aggressive when retrieved from containment. When leaving containment, the entity was on a leash and, after leaving the room its cage was in, quickly ripped the leash away from the research assistants and ran away. The entity, after being shot and its metamorphosis, attempted to harm security staff. It showed aggression and attempted to bite any staff that came close. The entity was tranquilized to aid in recontainment. Termination Test 44, 25 September 1949. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Belgian Malinois. Breed after termination, Australian Coolie. Termination method, IV administration of pentobarbital, dosage 150 milligrams per kilogram. Results: pentobarbital was administered at a dosage of 150 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. The entity was restrained on a medical table and was given an IV line through which the pentobarbital solution was to be administered. The entity did not express any sounds of distress at this time. The expected combustion happened 10 minutes after administration. Behavior: the entity showed slight aversion to personnel that retrieved it from containment, but stopped being aggressive and trying to escape the situation. The entity, directly post-metamorphosis, escaped the restraints on the medical table. The entity attempted to attack multiple research personnel who were in the room. The entity required sedation to ensure safe return to containment.
Request for the use of SCP-6842.
Date: 1 May 1950.
Dear Dr. Ryman, we, the agents of MTF Omicron-1, have decided that SCP-6842 would make the perfect addition for the needs of our task force. We've received direct confirmation from BCS-63 that we can take the entity into our care from 5 September 1951. Regards, MTF Omicron-1, Task Force Command.
Note: 5 September 1950.
MTF Omicron-1 has requested to use the entity as a working dog. They have prepared an integration and restraining regime intended to redirect and control its aggression and hostility. The regime is set to be completed on 5 September 1951, after which MTF Omicron-1 plans to use it as an alert and guard dog. Dr. S.C. Ryman.
Termination Test 45. Planned Test 5 July 1951. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Australian Coolie. Termination method, IV administration of pentobarbital, dosage 150 milligrams per kilogram. Scheduled testing could not be performed due to the entity not being brought to BCS-63 by MTF Omicron-1 on the scheduled testing date. The reason given at this time is MTF Omicron-1 moving the integration and testing of the entity forward to 5 July 1951 to ensure enough time to properly train it for missions.
Telefax message.
Date: 5 October 1951. Time: 13:47. Sender: MTF Omicron-1 Task Force Command. Recipient: Site Director Dr. Anderson, BCS-63. Subject: Integration and use of SCP-6842.
Dear Dr. Anderson, we would like to inform you on the progress SCP-6842 has made in our training and integration regime and its participation in its first official mission. During training, the entity has shown great promise due to its prior training as an ambulance dog during the war. It was quickly noted to be much less aggressive and prone to escape around personnel not previously involved in testing. During its first official mission, the entity showed great progress and great work in general. Examples of this include, but are not limited to, alerting agents of approaching patrols, providing safety for our agents, and even on navigation. It showed major benefit to the mission itself as seen in the official safety report submitted. We formally request that we be notified of any further testing at least 2 months in advance, and reserve the right to deny any testing due to possible mission interference. Due to possible confidentiality issues, we also reserve the right to not give a full justification for denial of testing. We thank you for your cooperation in this matter, and wish for your continued cooperation in future endeavors. The entity is now in the permanent care of MTF Omicron 1. Regards, MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command.
Telefax message.
Date: 5 May 1953. Time: 11:28. Sender: Dr. S.C. Ryman. Recipient: MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command. Subject: Testing of SCP-6842, 5 July 1953.
Dear Sir, Madam, hereby I am sending a 2-month notice of upcoming testing of SCP-6842 on 5 July 1953. The entity is to be brought to BCS-63 on the morning of 5 July 1953 to commence testing. Thank you for your consideration. Regards, Dr. S.C. Ryman.
Termination Test 46. Planned Test, 5 July 1953. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Australian Coolie. Termination Method: IV administration of pentobarbital. Dosage: 150 milligrams per kilogram. Scheduled testing could not be performed due to the entity not being brought to BCS-63 by MTF Omicron 1 on the scheduled testing date. No reason was given, and the research team was not notified.
Official Notice of Reclassification. This is an official notice for the reclassification of SCP-6842 from Euclid to Safe on 12 August 1953. Due to behavioral changes pertaining to aggression and complete cessation of escape attempts, SCP-6842 has been reclassified from Euclid to Safe. After this change, all security personnel and certain researchers have been reassigned to other SCP objects. Dr. S.C. Ryman.
Termination Test 47. Planned Test, 5 July 1955. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Australian Coolie. Termination Method: IV administration of pentobarbital. Dosage: 150 milligrams per kilogram. Scheduled testing could not be performed due to the entity not being brought to BCS-63 by MTF Omicron 1 on the scheduled testing date. The given reason was a highly classified mission. The research team was not privy to any of the details. Termination Test 48. Planned Test, 5 July 1958. Presiding Researcher, Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial breed, Australian Coolie. Termination Method: IV administration of pentobarbital. Dosage: 150 milligrams per kilogram. Scheduled testing could not be performed due to the entity not being brought to BCS-63 by MTF Omicron 1 on the scheduled testing date. No reason was given, and the research team was not notified of this, other than the intentions of MTF Omicron 1 to seek contact with Site Command to cease any further testing of the entity.
Telefax message.
Date: 9 July 1958. Time: 13:47. Sender: Site Director Anderson, BCS-63. Recipient: MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command. Subject: Testing of SCP-6842.
Regarding the cessation of testing on SCP-6842, while the entity is officially in the care of MTF Omicron-1, I cannot authorize for a complete cessation of testing, as I believe such testing of the entity may provide further insight into its anomalous nature. Thank you for your understanding. Regards, Dr. Anderson, Site Director, BCS-63.
Termination Test 49. Planned Test 5 July 1960. Presiding Researcher Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial Breed Australian Coolie. Termination Method: IV administration of pentobarbital. Dosage 150 milligrams per kilogram. Scheduled testing could not be performed due to the entity not being brought to BCS-63 by MTF Omicron-1 on the scheduled testing day. No reason was given, and the research team was not notified of this, other than the intentions of MTF Omicron-1 to seek contact with O5 Command to cease any further testing of the entity.
Telefax message.
Date: 10 July 1960. Time: 09:58. Sender: O5 Command, Automated. Recipient: MTF Omicron-1 Task Force Command. Subject: testing of SCP-6842.
This specific issue is not of sufficient importance to be communicated directly to O5 Command. This issue needs to be communicated with Site Command. Please refrain from using your direct line to O5 Command for these frivolous matters, as this direct contact is specifically for egregious violations of security protocol that require our immediate input. We urge you to treat this option of direct contact with more scrutiny. Regards, O5 Command.
Notice: from MTF Omicron-1 to SCP-6842 Research Team.
We write to inform you that SCP-6842 has passed in the evening of 2 May 1963. Due to the deteriorating health of the entity, we chose euthanasia as the most humane option, as it would regenerate afterwards into a healthy state again. Its anomalous ability triggered, as expected, and is now an Icelandic sheepdog. MTF Omicron-1 Task Force Command.
Note: 3 May 1963.
The team researching SCP-6842 has been notified by MTF Omicron-1 that the entity has died of natural causes. Its anomalous trait still took effect. The new breed of the entity being an Icelandic sheepdog. This seemingly points to the entity living normally around the same amount of time as the breed it takes on after regeneration. Dr. S.C. Ryman.
Termination Test 50. Planned Test 5 July 1963. Presiding Researcher Dr. S.C. Ryman. Initial Breed Icelandic Sheepdog. Termination Method: IV administration of pentobarbital. Dosage 150 milligrams per kilogram. Scheduled testing could not be performed due to the entity not being brought to BCS-63 by MTF Omicron-1 on the scheduled testing date. No reason was given, and the research team was not notified of this, other than the intentions of MTF Omicron-1 to seek contact with the Ethics Committee to cease any further testing of the entity.
Notice: from the Foundation Ethics Committee.
Date: 23 July 1963.
All further testing involving the termination, attempted termination, or purposeful harm directed toward SCP-6842 is heretofore prohibited. The current caretakers of the entity, MTF Omicron-1, have reported that the entity experiences pain on the same level as a non-anomalous animal. Additionally, this committee notes that testing on the entity has yet to provide any significant benefit or scientific insight. A full review of SCP-6842 test logs is being conducted to determine any wrongdoing on the part of the research team or site administration.
Notice: dismissal of Dr. Ryman.
Following the investigation of test logs regarding SCP-6842, the Ethics Committee has concluded that Dr. Ryman neglected to request permission for further testing from the Ethics Committee when it became evident that the entity was capable of experiencing pain, and further neglected to report to Site Command that termination tests were not providing any significant or relevant data. In light of these discoveries, Dr. Ryman has been found guilty of gross negligence in his post as lead researcher for the SCP-6842 research team, and has therefore been dismissed. Further penalties will be enforced by the Ethics Committee, effective as of 1 August 1963.
Telefax message.
Date: 10 August 1963. Time: 09:43. Sender: MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command. Recipient: Dr. E.C. Langdon. Subject: SCP-6842.
Dear Dr. E.C. Langdon, we would like to welcome you as the new lead researcher for SCP-6842. We hope to have a better experience with you than with Dr. Ryman. Any proposal for testing regarding the entity should be sent to us with at least 2 months' notice, so that we can decide whether we take the entity in for testing or not. Given the nature of our task force, we do not need to provide any reason to deny testing. We hope you keep the circumstances of Dr. Ryman's removal in mind. Regards, MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command.
Note: 16 August 1978. On the morning of 16 August 1978, the research team for SCP-6842 was notified of its passing of natural causes. Given the fact the entity was an Icelandic sheepdog, the time frame lined up with the average life expectancy of the breed. The new breed is noted to be a Boston Terrier. Dr. E.C. Langdon. 2. MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command. From Dr. E.C. Langdon. Subject: DNA testing of SCP-6842. Dear Sir, Madam, I would hereby like to inform you that I have put in an application for DNA testing of SCP-6842, scheduled for 28 November 1986. We will be testing some older samples of the entity that we have in storage. However, we will need some material for comparison and will therefore need some new DNA material. This will consist of some hair, saliva, and blood samples. This can be done at BCS-63, and after acquiring the necessary samples, the entity can immediately be released back into your care. The process should not be more painful or uncomfortable than a normal veterinary visit and should last approximately 30 minutes. If any more questions arise, feel free to contact me. Regards, Dr. E.C. Langdon. DNA testing, 28 November 1986. Presiding researcher, Dr. E.C. Langdon. Current breed, Boston Terrier. Sample, Set 1. Jack Russell Terrier. Hair, blood, and saliva samples taken on intake and kept in cryo-storage on 8 April 1942. Sample, Set 2. Boston Terrier. Hair, blood, and saliva samples taken on 28 November 1986. Hypothesis: comparison between samples from 1946 and 1986 will show that the entity is the same being as during intake, bar for slight variation due to differing breed. Results: The hypothesis was proven both right and wrong. The DNA profile of the entity showed the exact same composition in both DNA samples. It did not change depending on breed. It showed no variation in the composition of its DNA compared to 40 years prior. Note: 24 May 1993. Late during the night of 23 May 1993, I was notified of the passing of SCP-6842 of natural causes around 15 years after the last regeneration. The breed of the entity after regeneration was confirmed to be a Jack Russell Terrier. No direct correlation between breeds has been found yet when the entity has died of natural causes. Dr. E.C. Langdon. Note: 27 August 2005. In the early morning of 27 August 2005, I was notified of the passing of SCP-6842 again by natural causes. The new breed of the entity is a golden retriever. Still, no direct correlation was found between the death of the entity and the breed it becomes after death. This should be seen as an indication that the initial theory that the breed can be manipulated is untrue. Dr. E.C. Langdon. 2. Dr. O.E. Sanders. From Dr. E.C. Langdon. Subject: SCP-6842. Dear Dr. Sanders, I would like to formally congratulate you on your assignment to take over research on SCP-6842. It's classified as a small extra task for a reason. Because it is. The main thing that has happened over the years I led research is a single physical test. The main thing you will do while assigned to this case is logging natural passings of the entity. I recommend you keep it this way. You will likely soon be contacted by MTF Omicron 1 Task Force Command in regards to the entity. They're quite intense, but they only have the best intentions regarding the care of the entity in mind. You may want to read up on what happened before I took over research. Good luck with your new assignment. Regards, Dr. E.C. Langdon. Note: 26 January 2019. In the afternoon of 26 January 2019, a message from MTF Omicron 1 was received about SCP-6842, stating that it had passed again and has regenerated into a border collie. On examination, it specifically is a red merle pattern border collie. Noted is that any initial hostility it used to show toward research staff has been negated over the years of training, and the entity should no longer be considered hostile in any form. Dr. O.E. Sanders.
Report on the integration of SCP-6842 into MTF Omicron 1.
Integration report of training with SCP-6842 from 5 July 1951 through 5 October 1951. Integration goal: training the entity to act as a working dog for specific use in MTF Omicron 1, including, but not limited to, ensuring safety for our agents, alerting agents to incoming patrols and possibly navigation, counteracting aggressive behaviors, and reducing flight risk from the entity. Presiding agents: Agent Klein. Current breed of the entity: Australian Coolie. Summary: on request by operators within MTF Omicron 1 near its inception, their request for a working dog was granted. The entity was chosen as it already had a basic training as a working dog with its Mercy Dog history during World War II. The entity took quickly to its training and its new handler and showed next to no aggression or escape tendencies that were noted when the entity was turned over to MTF care. After a month in training, the entity was cleared to be a working dog. The entity was procured by MTF Omicron 1 on 5 July 1951, while integration was supposed to start on 5 September 1951. This choice was made by Agent Klein, as the current breed of the entity was deemed beneficial to its training and integration, and a new termination would not guarantee a beneficial breed of dog. The entity seemingly still had some ingrained access to the training it had for its duties during World War II, being able to follow the same commands that were generally used during the war. This was beneficial, as it cut down on the basic training time of the entity. This only required the agents of MTF Omicron 1 to learn the proper commands to use. The entity showed some behaviors that needed to be corrected before it could officially be used. These were its tendencies to anger towards science personnel within the Foundation. Agent Klein noted this is likely to be due to it only being harmed when scientific personnel were involved. Corrections were made by positive exposure by bringing the entity around scientific personnel in positive situations. These behaviors were corrected for general scientific personnel after a month. The behavior was not corrected for specific personnel like Dr. Ryman, but keeping the entity away from certain personnel was deemed a viable option. Training also involved alerting to personnel that are not part of MTF Omicron 1 when on alert as a way to avoid patrols. Training and integration was officially concluded on 5 October 1951 after the successful conclusion of the penetration test scheduled on that date.
Mission Report, MTF, Omicron 1, 5 October, 1951.
The following is a shortened mission report of MTF Omicron 1, declassified from Level 5 to Level 3. Mission report provided on penetration test, 5 October 1951. Penetration test goal: testing of security of MTF barracks at ACA by attempting infiltration of Mobile Task Force and security barracks without proper credentials. Optional additional goals: gaining access to the armory, finding patrol blind spots, finding alternative entry points. Operatives: the exact names of operatives within MTF Omicron 1 are classified. Operatives within this mission will be designated as follows: Agent Klein, Dog Handler; Agent Burke; Agent Walters; Agent Chance. Contents of the report. The contents of the following report are an abbreviated version of the full mission report. The full mission report is still highly classified due to the nature of Foundation security, and specifically Armed Containment Area. The purpose of this document is to show the use of the entity during a mission. At 0720, first entrance was made into ACA under the guise of being part of MTF New 7, Hammer Down. The uniforms of the agents Klein, Burke, Chance, and Walters were made to resemble accurate replications of MTF New 7 uniforms. Noted by Agent Klein is that with SCP-6842 around, fewer people questioned their legitimacy. Around 0800, Agents Klein and Burke split off from the group. While Chance and Walters went on directly to the barracks, Agents Klein and Burke saw opportunity with the entity in tow to explore more of the facility and at the same time find flaws in security patrols and possible other entry points. Around 0830, Agents Klein and Burke located an unsecured door on the side of the facility marked on the supplied map. Around 0900, the entity led Agents Klein and Burke around corridors to behind a security checkpoint, avoiding patrols and an actual security checkpoint by avoiding the smells of other people. Agents Klein and Burke reached the barracks of the on-site security personnel around 0920. They opted to cross this off their list as the door to the security barracks was well secured and moved on to find the armory. At 0930, the on-site armory was located and noted to be unsecured by the virtue of patrols not crossing over near the armory itself. The armory lock was simple and noted to be easily opened with a simple direct attack. Around 1000, Agents Klein and Burke met back up with Agents Walters and Chance at the new 7 barracks. Neither duo was questioned on their legitimacy while inside. While on the way back out of ACA, the entity alerted to people other than the agents of MTF Omicron 1, allowing the agents to diverge their route out of the facility. This, by chance, revealed another less secured route leading to an eventual extra exit to the outside. Going outside onto the ground of ACA led to an easy return to the vehicles they arrived with. No security credentials were taken into the ACA at the onset of the mission. All discoveries made in this physical penetration mission have been presented to Site Director to ensure corrections to secure ACA better in the future. Any of the specific security flaws mentioned in this report have already been corrected and tested again to ensure the improvement of on-site security. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, join my Discord community, hire me on Fiverr, or help support me by becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month. Regardless of tier, all patrons get early access to every single episode. The links are in the description. I don't have the talent it takes to write a skip. All I do is read. Original authors make this podcast possible, so credit to the original author. Their link's in the description. Show them some love as well. Consider becoming a member of the SCP Wiki. Upvote their work, and maybe write a skip of your own. Maybe I'll read it here someday. You never know if you never try. The content of this podcast and content relating to the SCP Foundation, including the SCP Foundation logo, is licensed under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0, and all concepts originate from scpwiki.com and its authors. This recording, being derived from this content, is hereby also released under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0.